movement takes all kinds of gifts and talents, whether you are in the street, whether you are, opening your purse, whether you are creating art, whether you are just giving your time with everyone. That's even everyone that's taking the time to tune in tonight. I just want to thank everyone who's choosing to be here in community in this moment in the pursuit of justice, because it's so important that we recognize and uplift exactly what you said, is that these are systemic problems. They do not go away by changing a tactic. They do not go away by banning a chokehold. They do not go away by tweaking $1 million in a budget. They come with wholesale change. That is what the word radical really means, by the way. It means the root, getting to the root of problems. And that word has just kind of been co-opted as though you just kind of some Looney Tune out here. But what it really means is that if you are radical, it means that you get to the root of problems, which is why I've never been offended, and I embrace that term, because what it means that we believe that systemic problems require systemic solutions. And when we talk about what's going on, we're in it here in New York, just clashes every night. Police are actively charging groups of peaceful protesters. We just had an unconscionable attack last night. We're now seeing tactics, and we're hearing reports of tactics where we have protesters. And, I think about so much of this moment has also brought me into flashbacks of Standing Rock. And I think one thing that was just so important is that in Standing Rock, no, we did not call each other protesters. We were protectors. And that's who you are. If you are out there in the street right now, you are a protector for Black lives. If you are out there disciplined, listening to Black-led organizations and activists out on the front line, giving your treasure, your blood, your purse, any of it, you are standing up as a protector right now. And a protector for justice, a protector for a world that has yet to come in some ways, but also a world that already exists in other small ways. And so I thank everyone here who's coming in that spirit as a protector for rights, for dignity, for racial justice and equality and equity. I think one of the things that we really need to get down to brass tacks, and that's why we can't stop with people saying that the answer to this is some retraining. I am not down right now, and I don't have patience right now for people think that this is going to be a tweak around the edges type of situation. This is going to take tough, bold, political sacrifices from people like me in office right now. We just found out today that the New York City Police Benevolence Association is now going to try to unseat me from Congress. And that is no surprise. I can't say I'm shocked, but when we talk about why things haven't changed, I want to talk about that. Let's talk about that. Why is a congresswoman who goes hard against brutality, the killing of Black people with impunity, why am I getting targeted? Because I am questioning the basic core of this system. And so this isn't a personal thing. I don't really care about that. I don't have attachment to power or any of that nonsense. But what I think is important is that when we ask, why haven't things changed? It's because people in positions like mine, across the country, up and down the ballot, get similar threats. And we really need to ask ourselves why police unions are politicized into making endorsements when they are in charge of public safety and carry a gun. That's something that we really need to talk about in terms of the political role of those who are supposed to be in charge of serving and protecting all people. So I'm gonna go hard with those questions. And I have to face the political consequences of it, because that is what justice is all about. It asks each and every one of us, what are you willing to sacrifice for a better world? Your time, your privilege, your ego, your power, because that's what it's going to take. This is not all just, roses and sunshine and fairy tales. This is a fight for justice. And let's talk about what that fight is. And let's talk about the ways in which the federal government, because, first and foremost, the front line here are our cities, there are mayors, they are our city councils, they are our governors. But let's also talk about how the federal government enables the injustices that are happening on the ground. One, we've got qualified immunity here in the United States of America, and that also is subject to federal jurisdiction. What does that mean? That means that if you're a police officer, or if you are any other, if you are not just police, but a large range of public officials, you have immunity from being held accountable for wrongdoing, including constitutional violations, which means when you create two tiers of the law, you cease to have a rule of law. Because when you start holding different people to different standards of accountability for the same crime, we start to erode the rule of law. We start to create an abutting form of second-class citizenship. And we also begin to write injustice into the law. So we need to get rid of qualified immunity. I'm proud to have co-sponsored legislation to repeal it. We also, another thing that we need to see, and I think this is something that we saw it in Ferguson especially, but we've seen it across the country. The militarization of our police is enabled by the federal government. And I want everyone to draw a direct line between our police budget and our defense budget here in the United States of America, because we would not be giving local police departments who are undertrained a tank if we didn't give the military too much money to have extra damn tanks lying around to begin with. And so the same budgetary injustices. Now, Martin Luther King, he said, budgets are moral documents. They show what our priorities and commitments are as a nation and as a society. And the same problems that we are seeing on a city council level and on a city level, which are, you have an entire city budget and half of that budget goes to policing and a shred to education, a shred to mental health services, a crumb for hospitals. That is mirrored on the federal level. It is in the image of its creator. And what you see in the federal budget is a complete outsized military budget. And again, a crumb for education, a crumb for the actual investments that can prevent conflict to begin with. And so when we talk about our issues with policing, I want people to really understand that this has actual consequences on the federal level. Another federal issue that we should talk about. A lot of people don't know this. You know what the largest law enforcement agency is in the United States of America? CBP, Customs and Border Patrol. You would not know how these things blossom and bloom. Or, sorry about that, or another shocking thing that a lot of people don't know, in the city of New York, you take that, you mirror it in the city level. The number of police in our schools in the city of New York, the number of police of New York City in New York City public schools equals the entire population of the Boston City Police Department. So I want us to talk and really be conscious of our school to prison pipeline, how we are criminalizing children before they can even read, before they can even do math. We are criminalizing children before they even know who Harriet Tubman was. And that is an injustice. The things that we are teaching them and the relationship that they are learning socio-emotionally is a complete lack of priorities. I want counselors in those schools. Why don't we have 10 counselors, social workers per school instead of that allocation? So all of these, again, budgets are moral documents. And when we get to a point where we value guns, and when we value brutality, and when we value cages, and when we value mass incarceration, and when we value all of the for-profit elements of even things like ankle bracelets, I think that what we really need, when we value that more, and when I say value, I mean when we put more money in that than we put into nurses, and we put into counselors, and when we put into schools and teachers, we have a problem. And so what all of what we're seeing in these streets right now, people are willing to die for a radical realignment for justice in this country. And I think it's really important that we acknowledge that this is not just about police violence. This is about the violence of homelessness. This is about the violence in the racism of our medical system that does not believe Black pain. This is about the violence of environmental racism, where counties and the federal government can say, we can dump in Black communities, we can poison water in Black communities like Flint, we can tear through and just violate the sacred land of Native peoples, that we can also do so in U.S. territories in places like Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. This is about violence in a lot of different systems. And upending that requires questioning the root. It requires a radical solution because our problems are radical. Killing a Black man in broad daylight is a radically violent thing to do. And it happens all the time, not just to George Floyd, and not just to women like Breonna Taylor, who are too often go nameless, whose murderers have not yet been arrested, or even our Black, queer, and trans brothers and sisters who we do not uplift either, like Leilyn Polanco here in Rikers Island. And I think it's just so, and Tony McDade, whose life we just lost as well. We need to also make sure that we are centering the justice of those lives, that we are focusing on that solution, that we are using, like, this is what political courage is for. Political courage, there are moments in every person's career where you have to stand up and be willing to say, am I willing to sacrifice everything that I have, all the privileges that I have, so that the right thing can go through? This is one of those moments. This right now is one of those moments. So if you're an elected official that for any reason is on this call, I'm asking you to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice to make sure that overfunded police departments are defunded? What are you willing to sacrifice to stand up to violence? What are you willing to stand up to a police union who's trying to hide and negotiate secret, making disciplinary records secret so that people don't know if someone's been convicted of brutality or someone has had a long history of brutality, or if they've been identified as a white supremacist? These are real problems, and they exist. They're not conspiracy theories, they are fact. And I want to ask anyone who may be an elected official on this call to ask yourself, what are you willing to give? And if you're not willing to give, I want you to ask yourself, what are you upholding? What are you upholding, and what are you being complicit in right now? Because this is a human moment, and there are people out there willing to die for this. So what are you willing to give? And we need people who are willing to give it all. So with that, I want to thank everyone who is joining us tonight. I want to thank you, Philip, so much for joining us tonight. I want to thank everyone who's willing to make calls tonight. I'm so thankful because we know that voting isn't the only solution, right? Voting alone isn't going to solve this. But at the same time, it is necessary. It is necessary, but not sufficient. It is necessary because if we don't show up, if we don't vote, then you know who is going to be sweeping all of our city councils. You know who is going to be sweeping all of our state assemblies, our state legislatures, passing draconian laws and expanding the system that that's here in the first place. So we got to show up on June 23rd here in the state of New York, and we got to go all the way up and down the ballot to get these changes. But even if you're not from New York and you're in this call, I want to thank you for participating in our democracy and helping us get that vote out on the 23rd. So thank you again. Thank you so very much to everyone who's hopping on this live stream, who's going to be making calls, that's joining us to Phone Bank tonight. And, we'll be right back. But again, so very deeply grateful for all that you all do.